Well, I'm traumatized. It's Saturday evening, and we had an experience this evening watching All Out from the Now Arena in not Chicago. What's the town it's actually in?
It's Hoffman Estates, right?
Hoffman Estates, yes. Which I don't know.
I've been there a few times myself.
Have you? The Now Arena is it's actually a really cool arena for wrestling. To me, those are my favorite arenas.
If you have transportation to and from.
Yeah. Once you're there.
You are absolutely boned if you're expecting any type of public transit to get back to where you need to go.
Yeah. Well, that's probably the least of our concerns right now, because there were many attempted murders this evening on the All Out pay-per-view. This is Kevin Ely, Frankie Media, with my friend here, Jeremy Finestone, who just I don't even know where to begin. This was an experience. This is one of the first times in a long time that I actually compulsively averted my eyes.
Okay.
From a wrestling show. We'll get into that.
Sounds like you're trying to process stuff. So let me come at you hot. Are you ready?
Go for it. Yeah.
All Out or All In? Which one was better?
As a show, tonight was better. The high points of All In were higher than this, I would put. Top to bottom. And I think probably because it was a leaner show. Tonight was a leaner show. It was more focused, I guess. Like I made a comment somewhere. It might have probably in the Discord, but I might have said it to someone else that All In, if All In was All In is the WrestleMania show. It's the big it's the show you invite your friends to. Okay. And it's it's the pretty show for the casuals, or whatever you want to call it, the one that's going to draw people in. All Out is for the sickos. And
there was something
and
for
tonight,
everybody.
and I said that like yesterday, and I had no idea how much this show was for. This is like pure Heisenberg grade Tony Khan, just cutting loose. At one point I thought we can talk about, like, there's lots of rumors out there that that the deal is imminent, the TV deal is imminent, and maybe Tony's gotten paid or is getting paid, and at least he knows he's going to get paid. And at a certain point during the show, it was in between the semi-main and the main, I thought to myself, this is a show booked by a guy who thinks he's won, who is like, he's feeling himself, he's feeling cocky, and he's ready to take some risks.
Well, that main event 100% felt like I don't have to answer to anyone at this point.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. I'm not worried. He
literally was already there. Like, you came in there, was like, well, what kind of crap are we going to get thrown at us? Good or bad? Because everyone who was watching that match at that point, for the most part, knew exactly what they were getting themselves into.
Yes.
Like, if you were there for that match, you knew that this has been something that's been built for 364 days.
Mm-hmm. And you knew that they were going to, whatever you have seen before, they were going to do more. Yes.
There was a point at the show in the Light Cup match where you were just like, how far are they going to go? What exactly is going to be the thing? In my mind, I thought it was a certainty Fire was going to be involved.
Me too.
And compliments to the self-control that they didn't do it. Maybe they couldn't find the right way to do it, but that was pretty much the only thing they didn't do. It's like, we can get to the main event either now or at another point, but the excessiveness was there from the get-go, so there was no escalation.
Yeah.
It was just like, just horrify the fans with the amount of, like, what you were willing to go through, like the threshold of pain that you're willing to experience.
Right.
It's
and I
not
feel like
go ahead.
Sorry, finish your thought.
And it's not like it's the same kind of match that Will Ospreay and Pac had, which was an amazing wrestling match, which is typically what people are signing up for a pay-per-view like this to be. But you're getting this in the main event, and you're not getting it every month, and you're getting it once or twice here. Well, you got it twice tonight.
Yeah.
But like this level, this brutality, it was already at such a point that there was no, like, you can't take it any higher. You couldn't go any further.
Yeah.
It murder.
Right. And that was after there was already an attempted murder. Like they started with murder before the match even got introduced. Like there was already a murder on the books before.
With that said, and like you knew this was what it was going to be. Like we were all talking about, like, this was an amazing go home angle. Like you knew exactly that these two were going to exact punishing violence on each other.
Right.
And so
you can't say they didn't deliver what they set up. Yeah.
The finger wag is almost like we can't finger wag is what I'm saying, because we knew what this was going to be, and it was amazing. But I say it every time, the moderation has to be in limiting the times that we do this match. The amount of blood that we have on AEW is so much that when we have these matches, you almost lose something because you are already desensitized to all the blood.
But even this tonight, one of the things that struck me was how blood wasn't as much of a feature of it as I expected, and I don't even know if it was just because they were just sweaty and they just didn't, they didn't bleed as much. And the part that, I totally agree with what you're saying about, like, you can't really finger wag, you can't tisk them for doing this, because we all knew it was coming. We all knew, like, we all walked in. We were expecting it. On it. Exactly. We were sold on it. I am someone who, it's not one of the things I'm a fan of wrestling for, is that type of thing. And I'm all for, like, a blood feud. I'm all for, hate in a feud and everything like that. And it's not even, stuff like staples and those kinds of things. Like, they make you cringe, but they're kind of like the effective things, because it's like, how much, like, I'm sure that hurts. Like, you got to have a pretty strong will to be able to take those spots, but you're not going to get injured. It's not going to shorten your career. It's not going to, the risk is low. And even the most jarring spot at the very, very end, like, that's a fairly low risk spot. Mm-hmm. The stuff of, like, power bombs on a cinder block and, those types of things, I'm like, okay, guys, it's not like I'm going to, like, shame them or be like, oh, how dare you, or any of that stuff.
Or Swerve kicking Page's head directly into the fence.
Directly into it. Yeah. Right. Even that I can be like, I mean, it's like, just like, guys, it's more like, hey, I want to still be watching you guys in 15 years kind of thing. That's where I get uncomfortable.
I don't want
because
you to
I'm like,
Mick Foley. I want you to become Adam Copeland.
Right. And that, we joke. Sorry. It's like they will sell matches on, like, Hell in a Cell and Blood and Guts and things like this, saying this is the kind of match that shortens careers and that kind of stuff. And most of the time it's just like hyperbole.
Yeah.
This was a match where I was like, Swerve's career is shorter than it was 2 hours ago. Mm-hmm. And, I don't like that. I don't, they don't have to do that.
You also feel guilt. Like, if you're taking joy in this,
right?
Even passively, like, you can say through the end of time that, like, I didn't enjoy this match. Like, it was not for me. I didn't like it. But there's always a part that it's just like, this is a wrestling match, and I have to deny the primal part of enjoying a wrestling match in order to deny the rest of it, because it's all born out of the singular concepts. But when they take that and escalate it to such a point where you resist against it, you enter troubled territory when it comes to your fan appreciation and your relationship with the fans, because at some point, this is what you become known for if you're not careful.
Yeah.
This
for
is
sure.
your reputation.
that's circling back to the part where of saying that Tony feels like someone who has nothing, or like you said, like he can't. Well, I forget how you phrased it, but basically he can't lose right now. Like he's nothing to worry about.
He has no one to answer to.
No one to answer to, exactly. Because they literally did an angle that was done in 1989 that almost got WCW kicked off of television.
Right.
Which was Terry Funk pulling a plastic bag on Ric Flair. As far as we know, it hadn't been done since, at least on a major promotion. They would not have done that unless he felt like they were going to get in no trouble for that. And I know it's pay-per-view and all that, but still.
There were a couple people in the back that were pushing for that angle real hard, and they finally got it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, clearly Mox is, I mean, not to change subject, I won't go down the rabbit trail. We'll come back to this when we get to him, but like clearly Jon Moxley right now is writing his own checks, you know, which I'm interested in finding out, but we'll talk about that.
He's laying some groundwork, and I appreciate what he's doing. And
as we'll get into that in detail as we get going. But I think before we get into the actual show, I think that's the one thing that I'm struggling with right now is, like you said, a little bit of that. What I like about, I'm not a huge combat sports fan in general. Mm-hmm. Like I used to be into MMA. I used to like boxing and things like that. The thing I like about wrestling is that it is, quote, fake. I like that it's simulated. I like the suspension of disbelief and how well people can do things and hold my suspension of disbelief. And sometimes when they do certain things that make it hard, even if they are pulling it off in a way that it's safer than it looks, I'm still like, ooh, this pulls me out of my disbelief in a way.
When it is so intense, you are taken out of the moment and you have to recalibrate.
And I'm worried about the performer themselves.
Yes, you're recalibrating your whole like perception of what's going on. What is the performance, and is this guy really hurt? And sometimes they want you to buy into the really hurt as part of it.
And that's part of it for sure. Yeah.
But there's also when you take the violence to such a level that you cannot help but just express genuine concern, horror, or disbelief about what you are seeing, because this is not what you normally see. That has to be figured into the equation of how you were like consuming this match. Right.
So for doing a post show, I'm going to be disappointed. maybe by the time we get to the main event, by when we recap the whole show again, I'll have formulated an opinion of how much I enjoyed it or not. But right now I'm like, I don't even know, man. Like right now,
there's so much to talk about the main event. And, we all just came back from it. And I got to tell you, the back half of this pay-per-view paled in comparison to the first half of this pay-per-view for me. So my excitement as we were getting to the back half was like, if the back half is as good as the first half of this show, I'm going to be incredibly happy. And I think there was one match on the back end that was considerably over-delivered based off of what people thought it would be. But for the most part, I got what I expected, and nothing over-delivered for me beyond that one match that we'll get to. And that's fine, but it wasn't like I was just blown away at the first half of the pay-per-view.
That's true, but it went from like an A to a B plus to me, or an A to a B. It's like it's not like it fell off a cliff.
There's an argument that show peaked in the middle of the card.
Yeah, which is going to happen anytime you've got Ospreay and one of his choice opponents.
But I'm not even sure if it peaked there. That Willow Statlander match was pretty amazing.
It really was. There was a point when we were in the Discord, like I was pretty light in the Discord, like trying not to pay attention, partially because I had company. But I think I made the comment of like this up to that point, this was a perfectly sequenced show as far as what match followed what match. Because every time it was someone said, well, good luck following that. And then they followed it because it was a change. Like they zigged and zagged in just the right ways, and then it kind of got a little bumpy near the end, but it was a really well laid out show, I thought, from start to finish. And for all the hand wringing and criticism and nitpicking and all that, fair analysis of booking and how you build to a show. And, you know, can you even do a 2-week build to a pay-per-view? Like, this show had a vision, it had a point of view. Like, this show was not phoned in. It wasn't just the leftovers of All In. The show had a completely different approach than All In, and a very clear idea of what he wanted to accomplish with it. And really sets up, like, you know, the next season of AEW of where it's going.
More so than a lot of other pay-per-views, you definitely felt like you knew what was going next. And even though they didn't run down the matches for Dynamite near the end of the card or anything like that, you got a pretty good idea of what you're tuning in for Dynamite for. So you got Ricochet and Will Ospreay. You've got the fallout of Danielson getting booted out of the Blackpool Combat Club. A number of different things that they can follow up on that, you know, frankly are the things that people want to see. So we're good. You know, and next thing we got is Grand Slam in 2 weeks. So we're going to have the same kind of escalated booking for that. And then we're going to have 2 more weeks escalated booking for, I think, Wrestle Dream on the 12th of October.
Yep.
So it is just full steam ahead until Full Gear. We got shows like this going all the time. So you said you wanted to run down the hello, Mr. Cobb.
Shout out to our friend from across the pond, Oliver. Thanks for being here, Oliver.
Oliver Cobb, the German broadcasting announcer for
scholar and a gentleman who I've never met in person, but hope to one day.
Oh, Oliver knows.
That's what I hear. All right, let's.
You wanted to run down the pre-show real quick.
Yeah, let's run down the pre-show real quick. We'll just kind of do it as a block. What I missed most of it. I had to run around and drop some people off, and I kind of had it here and there. I saw the end of most of the matches, but I didn't see the body of them. What was notable?
The main thing was the Acclaimed versus the Iron Savages, probably the worst match you'll see on a 0 hour this year. And I don't mean this to be like derogatory or anything like that, but Max Caster was terrible. He was not ready for the camera tonight. The Iron Savages, Boulder and Bronson. I think Boulder had a couple of really good high spots on his own, but Bronson and Anthony Bowen, they had an off night. Anthony Bowen lost his luggage, and so he was wearing his gear from All In while Castro was wearing his All Out gear. If you go back and check that one out, it's not ideal. But you know, Acclaimed won. I don't know if they should have.
You think they were just off, or was it like a little bit of boo-boo face from being the first match 90 minutes before the show starts?
This was legitimately like not ready for TV.
Just not clicking. Yeah.
It was sloppy. You know, like even when Matt Castro would try and hit a super kick, he wasn't even like lined up in the way for the hard cam to catch it. And he was off his ankle in a way where it just like all his angles for the camera were off and everything just looked bad. The only person in this entire match that felt like hit their high spots was Boulder. And it was just the moonsault. It was the smash. Basically, the story was Matt Castro was trying to get Boulder up on his shoulders for a slam, and he finally did at the end, and then they ended up winning. And I spent more time talking about this than I really should have.
Okay, we can move on.
It was just not good.
I did see the very end of the Dustin, Sammy, and Hologram against the Varsity Athletes.
Totally fine match. Frankly, the Premier Athletes do not get enough credit for making everyone look good in the ring with them.
Yeah.
Like they are the technicians that just do not get enough credit. And that was really what I was watching this match.
The definition of a good hand.
Yes.
Like
1,000%.
Which Dustin has made a career renaissance being a good hand. And I was struck by, like, I was in my car, had it on my phone, like sitting in the chair. I was not watching it while I was driving, but I had it in my car stereo so I could hear it. And was struck by like people just love Dustin. And I was like, if this show, this was probably too early in the pre-show, because Dustin can fire up a crowd. And I think having Sammy and Hologram as his partners and stuff, like, that's a great pre-show team. and it was a good indication. I was like, this is going to be a good crowd tonight because they're into this. That was a good thermometer match to be able to take the
they were on board
with
the Texas vibe.
yeah.
They were Lone Star State for this match. Totally fine match. Nothing you need to go out of your way for. Nothing on here we need to go out of your way for. This next one was pretty weird. Bang Bang Gang defeated the Dark Order. The Bang Bang Gang were full on baby faces.
I noticed that. Yeah, just wacky baby faces.
Just biggest geek baby face that you want to love. Wearing the gold tights. The Bullet Club decor is all gone. This was weird. This was very much like you didn't have anything for them, but you need to keep them fresh. Couple mentions of Jay White, but my hope is that we get some type of Bang Bang Gang versus Bullet Club thing at Wrestle Dynasty where we can kind of finally settle this whole.
Interesting.
Because if you're setting these guys up to all be baby faces, we can finally get this all like moving on, because there is still work to be done between Jay White and David Finlay and Wrestle Dynasty, which is something that we're going to return to a couple of times in this conversation. Seems like something that they could be building towards. And there were a number of things that they started building towards potentially for Wrestle Dynasty tonight.
Yeah. All right. Then I did see this segment. Sky Blue comes out, Chicago native, and I had didn't think about it until she mentioned it, that it was 3 years ago today that she was signed, or at least was asked to sign. She was on the pre-show, I think, on that all out that year, and was way over with the Chicago crowd. And so, she's nursing an ankle injury. She did her best to try to, connect with the crowd and get some sympathy, and just kind of give an update, which I think is fine, being a Chicago girl. Mariah May makes her a big appearance in the most underwhelming thing that was promoted, which is fine. I mean, it was just something
better
that was
on
promoted.
The 0 hour than wasting time on the actual paper.
Oh, totally. I totally agree. I just think, there was a lot of like, oh, is she going to do something, memorable, and, Mina Shirakawa may interrupt, or, some, whatever. But really it was just her kicking Sky's crutch out and, doing a little glamour ground and pound on her until Queen Amanada came out to make the save, which I liked. I like Queen Amanada.
The same Queen Amanada that got a squash match win.
Yes, a very dominant looking squash match where she looked pretty good. Yeah. Especially with her presence. So I like that. I like her being a challenger. And I like her getting a program. It's great. Yeah. The Queen. She deserves her due. I was a
little thrown off by Sky Blue suddenly being a babyface just because she broke her leg, and there was no real kind of pivot. But I get it.
She was kind of, but she was kind of going that way before, right before she got hurt.
Right? She got hurt in a Shida match, and she was still the heel going into the match.
Yeah, but she had been doing some matches. I can't recall any specific ones, but
this was unambiguous babyface Sky Blue.
Yeah. No, she had like changed.
Was there this unambiguous?
Yeah, she had, before she got hurt, she had kind of stopped doing the goth stuff, and she had gotten like some blue and white gear, like some babyface gear. So it was kind of like, I feel like it was in the cards that it was about to happen. But yeah, totally. I think so.
And we had one more match.
Best of wishes to her.
Absolutely. We'll be seeing her again soon. Clearly, they're setting up a match for her. And Mariah May will be champion at least until she returns.
Yeah.
So you can count on that in the timetable. Undisputed Kingdom with Roderick Strong, Taven, and Bennett defeated Shane Taylor, Lee Moriarty, and the Beast Mortos, and also Action Andretti and Top Flight. So Top Flight has now graduated to test pilots for the Air Force in their gear, which is an improvement, but
or
still
Top Gun, like flight suits. Yeah,
sure, but still seems like they're coming out of Cobb County, Georgia, so it's not great. Yeah. And but they're trying. There was one highlight in this match, and do you know what that highlight was, Kevin Ely?
Do not recall a highlight that I saw.
His name is the Beast Mortos.
Oh yes, yes.
Single and greatest highlight in this match. Every time he was in it, you could not take your eyes away from the match. That's it. Like, if you want to watch Beef Mortos, watch this match. This is it.
Yeah. They've got something with him.
They do. I like him.
He's a memorable character. The camera is drawn to Mortos, and it's not just because of his gear.
He is what the kids call a draw, Kevin.
Yeah.
He's a draw. He was a lot of fun, and in my mind, there was a part of me that thought he needed to be in that 4-way with Okada instead of one of the other two guys.
Yeah, I agree. I thought they should have had like a match with Ricochet.
Ooh.
I think that would have been good.
I don't want Mortos losing in a one-on-one match to Ricochet, though, as much as
yeah, he needs to win more. Yeah.
Before we get to the main show, we got a couple of interesting comments on here. You want to touch on those?
Yeah, there's a couple here. So I had the scrum pulled up on a window just in case anything ended. And BJ,
we did get an announcement about Shockwave.
Oh, what was that?
Tony says AEW is set to create a shockwave throughout professional wrestling. He also says that apparently that is something that they have a trademark on.
Yeah, they filed a trademark on Shockwave as a program.
So
it's a TV program.
That could be interesting.
Could be. A new show.
What else we got?
Show? Who knows? Well, what's interesting to me is the scrum's already over.
Good.
Usually the scrum is, so I want to welcome the boost in viewers that I just noticed.
Appreciate that.
Came over. So a lot of people jumping over. Apparently it was a weird scrum. There was a scuttlebutt about something happening backstage.
There's one with the Lady Bee that says that. There we go.
Oops, sorry.
I got you. Alvarez said it was a wrestler who wasn't on the show and a production employee, meaning that not anyone that you're really going to care is going to get suspended and not going to be on TV, and probably not something that we need to worry about.
Whoever you weren't seeing, you probably won't see for a little longer. Is probably
yes. We are okay, everybody. Daniel Garcia,
hey, it's all out.
JF not suspended. Yeah. Speaking of those two, let's get into the main card here.
Yeah. So we started off right away with MJF. If you're not in the main, you're in the first match. And I thought this was fine. This was actually a really good choice to be the first match, I thought, because it was heated. It was a big match, and it probably would have been oddly placed later on. It probably would have messed with it. So MJF comes out with his entrance with the big flag saying "Thank me later," and Garcia does not get an entrance because he attacks immediately, kicks off the show with action, and came in with tape over his forehead from the nasty wound, I guess, from the wine bottle on Wednesday. And this was just a big brawl right from the top. I didn't take a lot of notes on it, but it was just I thought it was a really good, intense match. I thought Daniel really came off well here. Normally Daniel is does more of a straight wrestling style. And it was cool to see him have a little bit of brawling in here. There were some interesting submissions. MJF tried to do a little Zack Sabre Jr. impression at one point.
Marky Cat.
Yeah. Got it on. I love how I do love one of the things I love about MJF is how his character just always dogs on Japanese wrestling, but in every match he's clearly has just watched something
1,000%.
He's stolen. A little wink. One thing I noticed in this match, this was the snottiest match
it was disgusting.
In a long time. There was a lot of snot in this match. Yeah.
There was a point where MJF had a loogie on his cheek from the blood pour spot with Garcia on the top rope. Yeah. So continue. Sorry.
Let's see. So then it kicked into gear. There was Garcia really started to get the win. I thought this was interesting how they set this up. This was kind of 50-50 match, the way that they played it, because Garcia had a point where he had MJF in a chancery, and it looked like he had him choked out, and the ref went to check the arm, and Garcia waved the ref off, saying he didn't want him to check it and tried to go for the pile driver. implying that Garcia had him beat, but because of his hatred and wanting to break his neck, sacrificed winning the match and paid for it. But he did get a jumping pile driver for a good 2 count. Garcia went for a pile driver off the corner. MJF pulled the ref, did the hit to the groceries, and almost did a cradle pin for a 2 count. Or no, cradled him for the win after the
jackknife,
shot to
right?
the family jewels. Jackknife cradle for the win. Garcia is befuddled, angry, as many people are. This is very much like the Darby losing to the headlock takeover in their history. MJF offers a handshake, and he whispered something to Bryce that was interesting. I don't know. He leaned over and whispered something to Bryce, the ref, and then Bryce went to Garcia. So there was some kind of message passed. I don't know if it was calling how to do the shot or whatever, but
yeah.
Went to it, went for the nut shot. Garcia reversed it, hit it on him, spin on him, did a pile driver off the second rope, shook his head the way that MJF did him, kissed him on the head, and left through the crowd. So one of those classic, you lost the match, but you won the battle, came out with his dignity, and MJF was stretchered out. So we'll see if MJF sits out for any while, and then we'll see if now that this has happened, is Garcia going to be, is this helpful to Garcia? Did this hurt Garcia? We kind of joke about how MJF's already done his job for the year, so he's not going to probably be losing to Garcia anytime soon. But how well does this set up Garcia to be up at that level?
Oh, I don't think it's going to matter in a month, to be honest. Let me ask you this. At any point, did you think that Garcia was going to win this match?
Never. I mean, there was a part of me, I think there was a spot where I thought this would be a place you could do it, and maybe they will. But I mean, going in, just because I know him, I don't know MJF, but what I know, MJF doesn't lose twice on 2 pay-per-views.
Right.
And that's really it. So
we all know what this match was. It's where the plucky underdog becomes something more than plucky, and he becomes somebody that we look behind and legitimize and whatnot. I would not be surprised if something comes out later on that there were plans for Garcia to win this match. It's not completely impossible by the way that this thing was booked. I also kind of think that MJF might be gone for a while. That was kind of an injury angle. And that could help Garcia for a little bit. They could also return to this at some point. These are all things that just feel like were ambiguous, and there's always politics when it comes to an MJF match. There's always a little bit of something extra. It's always the first match, unless there are extenuating circumstances. There are all these things. And you kind of felt like there was this and that. But with all that said, I thought this match completely over-delivered. You knew what it was going to be going in. You kind of felt like there was no chance that Daniel Garcia was going to win this match. You also knew what match MJF has all the time. But when 10 minutes had passed in this match, the only thing I could think of was man, this match is really good. And it just kept getting better to the point where it was I almost didn't care who won or lost at the very end. And it's kind of what you need out of this, is where it's you come away just looking at both guys. And I think it was a match where you say this in platitudes, but both guys got something out of it. MJF continues to, pad his resume with excellent matches, no matter who it is. Oh, there you go. MJF is allegedly filming a movie. And then you have Daniel Garcia, who's proving he can hang. And there's a look and there's a thing about Daniel Garcia where, kind of like Pac, where he has all the talent, but there's something about the charisma that is not allowing him to get to that very next level. And I think he can get there at some point. Now, the other thing that my takeaway on this match is about MJF. And when I saw him do the Clarky Cat, which is a move that Zack Sabre Jr. does, I immediately thought that Zack Sabre Jr. and MJF will be wrestling a match at Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th in Tokyo.
Potentially for the IWGP title.
Yes.
That would be pretty amazing.
That would be the kind of match that you would have MJF do at Wrestle Dynasty if and all other things. But as soon as he pulled that move out, I was like, oh, okay, this is where we're going on this. And it makes perfect sense.
And he'd get to cash in his one loss per year right on the first week of January and be done with it.
Hey! I mean, it's not even an AEW record. It doesn't even count against the AEW record, so it doesn't even matter.
Right, exactly.
It would be a New Japan. It would be a New Japan record. That was the other main takeaway, is that they told you without telling you that MJF and Zack Sabre Jr. has got to be penciled in somewhere. And if you read between the lines, it kind of probably means that Zack Sabre Jr. is probably going to be doing very well in the next couple months. And I would have no doubt that he has 2 title matches back-to-back on January 4th and January 5th, because that's just the kind of sicko that we love, and he is as well.
and he wrestles a style where he can, so it's nice.
Right,
I'm very much looking forward to that. All right. Young Bucks defended the title in a hastily planned match. I believe this was just announced. Was it Wednesday night that they made the challenge? And then Saturday.
This was at the very end of Wednesday night, and then they immediately pivoted to the 8-man tag on Friday night.
Right, and which ended with Yuta getting the pin on a Buck to justify the match, basically. So this was fine. This was again where it was like not super memorable, but it was enjoyable. There is a thing where the Young Bucks are, to me, inarguably the best tag team of all time.
Okay.
Over their career. There's a thing with them though that I've seen them do so many great matches and so many great things that it takes a lot for them to reach that level. Where I'm not saying that they I think they were way more in this match than they have been probably in a few matches this year.
I would agree with that.
But it still, to me, was a little bit like, I don't know. I'm a little numb to the Young Bucks act, of not just the act, but the way they wrestle, and the spots are familiar and things like that. That said, I enjoyed this match. I like the dynamics of it being that Yuta was game, but anytime Yuta was in, the Bucks would get the upper hand, and anytime Claudio came in, he would clean house. Claudio looked like a Superman, which is great. Which is I'm kind of undermining my own point, because it's kind of the genius of the Bucks, is that you can think, oh, the Bucks didn't look all that great, but then you're like, but man, the people who wrestled them look really good, and that's always the thing about the Bucks. It's like the thing about the Bucks is they're great at making other people look good. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. There was no hint of what was to come later, I don't think. I wonder, I'd be interested to see if there was, but basically it ended with Claudio and Yuta going for the fastball special, which is my favorite name tag team finishing move. I love that they do. And it literally is a fastball special. Yeah, I got the X-Men shirt on. But they were going for the fastball special. I believe Nick was the one who pushed Yuta off, and then Matt small packaged him for a clean win. So Yuta
Claudio tried to break up the pin, but was unable to.
Yeah, I'd be interested to go back to see if how hard he tried.
He was trying. He still wanted the titles. It didn't make any difference.
So theoretically in that world, he knows what's coming. He knows what the plan is. Theoretically, they've not let Yuta in on the plan.
It could have been had they won, he never would have turned, but the Danielson way wasn't working, and that was the last thing.
Maybe I'll be interested to see if they address that or if they just brush it off. I could see it being something they don't address, but I'd be interested to go look and see if he kind of.
I thought this match was a little brilliant, and I will tell you why. The first 5 to 10 minutes of this match was a lot of comedy and a lot of vaudeville. It was a lot of, character work and, the spots. That crowd was tired after that first match. And instead of trying to force them with a lot of heavy, high spots from the get-go, they slowed it down. They connected with the crowd. Yep. And the first half of that match, they didn't do anything at all. And then the second half of the match was everything that they needed to do. And by the end of that match, the crowd was re-energized. They had caught their breath. They were in on everything. And this was the first time in a while where I felt like the Young Bucks looked like the Young Bucks, where they were wrestling and doing some of those coordinated tag moves. They weren't doing hardcore matches with, tacks on their shoes or anything like that. This was just a tag team pay-per-view match, and it's what they do best. And Claudio and Yuta were great opponents to have. I felt like I had deja vu with Matt Jackson getting the Claudio spin, because I just remember Matt doing it before with his arms around his head. I'm not gonna smash my ears on this one. I remember seeing that before. I'm like, oh, we've been here before. But it just felt like they got it in one last time before they're not going to be able to do this match for a considerable period of time.
Yeah, that they did act like they were in with a. It felt like two evenly matched teams in a way that a lot of times the Bucks lately have been in that EVP mode where they're like, oh my gosh, we didn't expect the team to be this good. Or like, where they're like kind of play up the, the idea of like where they're kind of overselling the team, whereas in this match, it was more like, we know how good they are, so we're going to be the best team in the world against them. You know,
we're going to meet you.
They cranked it up. Yeah.
All right. Jonathan Messenger had a question for us. Claudio, Yuta, and Pac are trios champs. That is correct.
They are currently the trios champs. So that will be another thing to tune into, Dynamite to see how that is happening. I'm very interested in Pac joining up with this, taking the spot of Danielson in the Blackpool Combat Club, and actually having an Englishman or a Brit,
or maybe just being an addition because maybe Marina takes Yuta's spot.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
anyway, I like him being. I like him in that mix.
Pac is a little higher on the tier. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. But I meant Pac taking Danielson's spot.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So, I think likely there'll be some sort of reckoning, where Mox, Pac, and Claudio and Marina give Yuta a choice. You can, you weren't there with us Saturday night, but that's okay. You can still be with us.
Well, they were holding him and controlling, like, no, you don't want any part of this. They committed the mercy killing, and they're like, you will not get involved, and you can decide later on.
So it'll be interesting to see how they play that. I think where it could go is, if he sides with Danielson or whatever, I think what you'll see is Claudio and Yuta. I think, Yuta has clearly been, kind of a protege with. He's been paired with Claudio, not just because they're in the faction, but like. It's time for them to work with each other instead of just next to each other, So
I think there's a lot more to Yuta deciding to go with them instead of fighting against them. It's like the one last thing, and then, he betrays Danielson too, kind of thing. And then they can do a match, Yuta and Danielson, that kind of separates those two from the rest and kind of get that match in there before it's all done. But I like singling out Yuta in a way where you give him a little bit of different story from everybody else instead of just being one more of the gang that was in on it. Everybody in the Blackpool Combat Club has a different arc to what happened tonight. Not everybody has the same mindset, or they came to that same conclusion. And if it takes Wheeler a couple more days to realize what everyone else already realized with Danielson, I kind of like that narrative.
Mm-hmm. And for all the fans of Tony Khan's long-term storytelling, they finally paid off Claudio being disgruntled with Danielson back in May when he signed up for Anarchy in the Arena. Finally paid it off.
I will only consider it paid off if Claudio specifically mentions it in a promo.
Yeah.
Where he's like, do you remember that time you did that? Like, air your grievances, Claudio. Air your grievances, Pac.
I think that's I don't know if they'll specifically do that, but I think that will be part of the story is like, hey, when we formed this was about the group, and the last few months you've been off doing your own thing. So we're not going to wait for you to run off into the sunset and I'll cheer and clap for you while you walk away. If you're out now. Yes. And I can see Mox doing that and Claudio backing him up. And Claudio is more interesting this way too.
My big ask is that if they're going to take a lap for like building all of these things, I am begging them to show this logic on TV instead of having somebody who works at AEW post it on social media and then show that like that's how you did it and that's your victory lap. No, like do this on TV, keep it to the programming. Like if you guys are smart, pat yourselves on the back privately. But this is all about a television program and not proving your haters wrong.
I completely agree with that because we saw that just in the last few days. I love that everything in the main event or everything on last Wednesday was set up, and there were scripted words that were said, and there was things in the Titantron and all that stuff that were like setting up things that were going to pay off. It's just a shame that we got told all about it before we saw it in the countdown videos and the But
don't
Sam has a great point here. Yeah, exactly. Sam has a great point here. She's advocating for Marina to take Yuta's role in the trios champion.
I don't know if they will. That's ballsy. Like, and I don't.
It would be fun.
It would be something that makes Marina stand out and gives her a Ronda vibe. And I don't know if Ronda's somebody that like they were definitely trying to tell you Ronda with that eye makeup, with tonight. So
they're
reminding you of that. Mm-hmm. So I'm not against it whatsoever. I just don't know if that's their vision.
Right. And it's tricky when you do that because then if you don't want to, if you're not going to go with it, then you've got to come up with some reason where it's like, well, of course we can't, let a girl be a men's champion and and then you're just setting yourself up for bad things. If they're not going to, if they went for it, I would love it.
You have to be careful with some spots in a 6-man, but you can totally get away with Claudio, Pac, and Marina doing matches and covering it all up and keeping some semblance of the violence that people definitely don't want to see out of it and having a complete match. It's possible.
And there's so many people in the trios division. I mean, you do a match with Top Flight and Action Andretti against Pac, Marina, and Claudio.
Could be something.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Something? Yeah, go ahead. What?
You know what else is something?
What?
This next match.
Yes.
This was something.
This was one of the most anticipated matches. Will Ospreay versus Pac for the international title. Pac had been promised a shot for a couple of months, and got it here. And I think everybody was like, this match is going to rock, and rock it did. And what's interesting is it rocked in a different way than I expected. So I think when you close your eyes and you visualize like, what's the Will Ospreay versus Pac match going to be like? And even when they did the brief preview of it in the tag match on TV, you expect it's going to be like every match with that type of person where it's like, let's do some exchanges where we're a total draw and we're a total match for each other and we can't land a move because everyone's flipping out of it, and do a lot of crazy sequences where they all land in a pose and everyone, stands up and cheers before they get going. This didn't do that. Pac took him down for a rest hold within 30 seconds. Like he took a headlock and laid down in it and was like, yeah, what do you think of that? To everybody. And so the first part of the match was kind of like Pac trying to keep Will on the ground, which was interesting to me. And then they got into more stuff. They did a Sky Twister They cut to Ricochet watching backstage in a suit, like the good former WWE employee he was. There was a "This Is Awesome" chant super early, so people were ready to go. Then they landed on the ground, started slapping each other across the face, and then stopped and just said, we could do this standing too, and then just stood up and started hitting each other with elbows, which I thought was kind of funny. And then it just picked up from there. Like, it was a little bit like, it wasn't quite the same thing like you said of the tag match, but it was a match where there were clear gear shifts in the match as they sped up. Like, for instance, Avalanche Brainbuster, Will selling a stinger. He's definitely selling the neck a lot. There was a Sasuke special to the outside.
That was the part where I was worried that Pac was actually hurt because he sold trying to get up and get over to get in position. Yeah. But it was just them being really good at what they do.
Pac's an underrated seller because he's not very dramatic in his selling, but he's very subtle, but he's very good seller.
Bro, the argument is Pac is one of the best wrestlers in the world, flat out. Like, he may be top 5.
Well, Danielson calls him the perfect wrestler.
I mean, you watch this and you think about his matches with Kenny Omega, and you're just like, when the guy has the dance partner, he's unstoppable.
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah. He really is. Like, you never see him mess up. You never see him in the wrong spot.
And he wrestles to the level of his opponent almost every time. Like, he doesn't have bad matches, but he doesn't put the people in the ring that he's with in position to not be able to do anything that they can't do. So it looks like whenever Pac is wrestling these matches, he's wrestling to his level, but he's also wrestling to the level of his opponent. But his level is so high that he can match Ospreay and he can match Omega and he can match all these guys, but he's never been considered at that level. But every time he's put in with one of those guys, he's absolutely at that level.
Yeah. It reminds you that he was one of the first guys signed to this company.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was, the perception was, wow, people are going to get to see what he can do. And we did for a while. And then he sort of like bounced in and out for a while and things like that. It's nice to see him, even though he lost this match, he's clearly moving into a thing where he's going to be more of a player, that is, as opposed to the guy who shows up and has an awesome match and disappears for a while, or it's like, doing the death triangle thing.
But being alongside Claudio and Moxley,
it's going to have more real direction.
That is top level shit. Like, that is, that is like top faction, one of the top guys. He got elevated tonight, even though he lost.
Well, I'd imagine we're going to get Pac Danielson.
Oh, sure.
Because Danielson literally, he, like I said before, he says he's the perfect wrestler.
Every single one of those guys before he's done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if Moxley is now the world's end opponent for him, and he's the guy that actually puts him down.
Could be.
There were a couple other guys that I kind of threw out there in a conversation tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to it with you because you actually put up a poll.
I did put up a poll.
The guy, and when we get to the Danielson match, we're going to cover all of that. But
it was a small sample size, but I'll look up the results.
There were a couple guys and a couple of logic holes as to why they should do it. And this match got me thinking about who they could be.
Yeah. Let's see. We saw Poison Rana on the side of the ring, which, as we know, is the hardest part of the ring. Right into a brutalizer. That was a really nice spot. Did a black arrow. Will got his knees up and did a small package, which I always love to see. That's always a great near fall, is when the black arrow just gets looped into a small package. Will... okay. Sorry. I was typing fast, so my notes were a little off there. Will got power bombed and reversed into a hurricanrana. What was the spot? It lit the whole crowd up.
Okay,
was Pac trying to power bomb?
I thought you were talking about when Will had him into the Death Valley Driver and Pac converted it into a DDT.
No, this was. I think it was Will powerbombing Pac. Pac reversed it into a hurricanrana, and Will landed on his feet. And the crowd
I thought it was either a Hurricane Runner or like a Canadian Destroyer, and Will landed on his feet.
Yeah, which is just like that. That's when everyone was like, okay, now we're in fifth gear. AEW chants, another poison
on
rana.
Their feet and basically started applauding the match.
Right.
Like if everybody stopped, got on their feet.
That's when it crossed into greatness. Like it just happened. And there's another poison rana. Will took a nasty one of those ranas. I noticed that he had a bump that had a scrape, like a rug burn on his forehead, where it was like clearly his
there were a couple of times where his head scraped the ground there when he did a springboard into the ropes, and they did a slow motion of it. His head got so close to the ground that I was like, it might have touched. Who knows?
There was a few of those tonight. Yeah. He reversed a brutalizer. Will did a poison rana on Pac, then hit a hidden blade to the front and just fell on him for 2, which was a great spot. Then did a poison rana, or Pac did a poison rana off the top turnbuckle. Will landed on his feet again, which is like, quintessential Will spot. Then hit another front hidden blade. Then hit a top rope Oscutter. Then picked him up for a Stormbreaker. Pac reversed the Stormbreaker into Hurricanrana, but Will held onto him, then dropped him in a Styles Class and hit the hidden blade for the pin. All the stars. Fantastic match. I know in this year there's probably still 5 matches aboard it, but this was, you're right. This was about a perfect match. As perfect as a match you can get.
Like, you could nitpick shit about this, about like they shouldn't have done this, or they shouldn't have done that, or they could have done this, or they could have done that. You could watch this over and over and over again and never get tired of it. It's just one of those wrestling matches that you could say that like it was missing an emotion or the build or whatever, but
that's not a minus.
This is what people pay money to see. This is what this is the lifeblood of the sickos, is this match right here.
Yeah.
Like you may love the blood, you may love like the fences and the scraping and, knowing that these guys are putting their bodies on the line. But at the end of the day, you want to see something from a wrestler that no one else in the world can do.
Yeah. This is what I watch AEW for. Yes. Is this. And they have been delivering on every pay-per-view has had something like this all this year.
Ospreay is as advertised.
Yeah, yes, he is. All right. Next, everyone thought, who could follow that? I feel really bad for whoever's going to follow that. And then Willow Nightingale and Kris Statlander said,
"Son of a bitch."
Yeah. So live from Chicago.
Saturday night, isn't it?
It's Saturday night. Kris Statlander came out. Yeah, new gear. Stokely sporting a Nas and DMX shirt. And then Willow comes out pink with her white braids. And guess what? AEW had a women's street fight that was awesome. Shock.
They own it when the women go hard. Like they do not hold back.
Yeah.
And as much as I loved like Will and Pac, I expected that. Like for me, like that was baked into the equation of this show. When I finished this match, I was almost arguing that this was the best match on the card because of how great it was versus the expectation that it had and the level that it exceeded. And my God, I had so much fun watching this match. Like it wasn't
it was so fun.
Like I was shocked or anything like that. It's like this was the kind of hardcore match that it's just like, I don't want to see this all the time. Like there was a minimum amount of blood. There was blood, there were things that were just like kind of creative, like you'll get to it, but the splits onto the tack, the ground attack, the whole thing just kind of, it felt fresh, and it felt like you let these two women cut loose who, for whatever reason, you have held back for all of these years in service of other people or injury or just not that time. but this was their night, and holy shit, it was fantastic.
And like what you said, there have been street fights in the past that were, I think a lot of it, I don't want this to sound dismissive because I don't mean it to be, but I think a lot of what people were impressed with was how far they took it, or like what the women were willing to do. This match, what I think made it better than probably, to me, it was my favorite of the women's street fights they've ever done. Because it had a great layout, it had a great story, it had the things that a normal wrestling match did, and it didn't depend on the stunts and the oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that spot, how tough is this woman, that stuff. It was just a really good, believable fight. It is the kind of match that when you're seeing a match between two people who love and trust each other and want to go out there and do something together as a team, and
they have so much chemistry with each other.
They have so much chemistry. They clearly know each other very well. They know how to take care of each other, what they can and can't do. They're confident because they've both been in that thing before. Yeah, I mean, they start with a powerbomb on the table, which was fantastic because it had a delayed collapse there, and then some rough throws through the barrier. There was a spot I was worried about Willow. She was on a table. Statlander did kind of a cannonball flip off the turnbuckle under the table. Willow ducked out of the way, but wasn't quite out of the way enough. So when Statlander's feet came over, it not only hit her in the back of the head, but drove her forehead into the ground
both of the ways. Chest.
Yeah, I mean, and I know there are pads on the ground, but still, I was worried. I was like, oh no, this is going to end early because Willow just got knocked for a loop. But she just fine.
Walked it right off. You just saw
she
her.
Really did, because she followed it.
She was like, I'm walking this off.
She followed it right up with a pounce through the barrier that would have shamed Roman Reigns. And you could just tell. I was like, oh, okay, these women are like, we've been waiting years to have an opportunity like this. We're going to show out. Like, we're going to deliver. Then
also one of the best announce booth spots I've seen.
Yes.
In God knows how long, when Kris Statlander powerbombed Willow through it, where she hit with impact, and there was a split second before the rest of the announce table just collapsed and just self-destructed, and you just watch it like, oh, that looked like it hurt.
Yeah. Then Stokely brought out a trash can of plunder, which I think was a tribute to New Jack. They had a chair that at the beginning of the match that said New Jack RIP on it. So I think they were doing a little bit of a tribute spot there. Then messed around with that a little bit, and then Statlander hit Willow with a spear off the ramp through a table. And immediately you could tell this was funny to me because they went through the table, landed, and you kind of do the customary, like, put your hand on.
Am I alive? If everything is where it needs.
Let me know you're okay. And their heads are right next to each other. And all I could see was how happy they were. I was like, these women are so happy right now. And it didn't take me out of the match. I was like, I'm loving how much they're loving this. The crowd was super into it. Willow got a chain. Statlander brought it in a bag. Willow, this was the one spot that I would critique. I would say, like, this wasn't great. Willow hit her 3 times in the face with a chain, then bit her, and Statlander turned around and reversed it into a German. To me, you just don't, if you're going to wrap a chain around your hand and do a spot where you're hitting someone with it like that, you don't just reverse that into a German suplex. Like, you just,
I mean, in desperation, you're going to throw a German at somebody to get them to stop.
I guess so, but it was one of those spots where I was like,
it was jarring.
Okay, that's a little unbelievable,
Yeah.
Then we did the tacks. And one of the most creative, I hate thumbtacks. I hate thumbtack spots.
But if you're going to do it, be creative.
And that was creative. Kris Statlander, I don't even know how she set it up, but she ended up doing a splits into the tax, which is ridiculous. And the crowd went crazy for it. Then there was a DDT in the tax. Avalanche Spanish fly off the top. And then Statlander brought out a chain with the strap, like kind of it wasn't like a dog collar,
like the neck, bull rope match kind of thing.
Like a bull rope match, but it was a chain, like a chain match. It was a Russian chain, I guess. And chained them together, which I thought was weird for a heel to do.
I Velcro, by the way. There were no handcuffs or anything. They were simply Velcroed, like handles affixed to a chain.
Then let's see, there was a spine buster into the tax, and they did a final embrace, which was a little NXT-ish. It was like, to me, there was a spot where like Willow like literally like nodded to her, like, okay, it's time to go home. And I don't know if that was an accident or meant.
We've taken this journey of pain together. It's time to say
goodbye. Right. Almost to the point where I thought, so like, then she did the Saturday Night Fever move, and then did a camel clutch with the chain over the mouth, and Willow submitted. And I actually thought for a second when Stat stood up that this was going to be one of those matches where it's like they became friends again by taking each other to the precipice of death. Like, you know, the way she was looking at her, and then like
one
Stokely
of those,
was
okay,
talking trash to her.
Again.
Right. And like Stat, like Stokely was like kind of gesturing to her to like, you know, keep on her or something. And there was a little bit there where I thought maybe the story was going to be Stat was like, what am I doing? I respect you more than I respect this guy. But they didn't go there. She was just dominant, walked out. And my next note was hell of a show.
Yeah. I was like, I would have been okay if that was the end of the show tonight. I don't know why. I was just one of those like that. I feel like I've got everything I wanted out of the show.
Hey, if that had been if that had been the end of Dynamite, you would have been. That was the best Dynamite.
That was a great episode. Absolutely. I loved that Statlander came out full like black gear, dressed head to toe, like she knew that this was her moment. And Willow came out dressed like she was ready for a fight in her backyard. Like somebody had stepped up in her backyard and she was ready to like throw it out. I was like, oh no, you didn't.
But she had her braids out. You know, she had new braids and all that.
Like they were both authentically themselves coming into the fight.
Definitely.
And I really appreciated that rather than like glammed up in such a way that it didn't feel right for a street fight. And I'll tell you, Statlander walking out of there, she looked like she was hurting. She was in a lot of pain with every step that she was taking. It's like, you deserve all the applause, and I hope when they go back there, they let you know exactly what you did, because that was a hell of a match you just did.
There were a lot of probably a lot of ovations in the back when people came back to the ring tonight, because everyone stepped up.
I wanted to mention something earlier. Thing about Jericho, that he wasn't on the show tonight. And Samantha was so upset that Jericho wasn't going to be on the show. This happened last year. All In, Jericho was on a match, but he was not on All Out the following week. And so for the first time in a year, Chris Jericho was not on a pay-per-view tonight.
Interesting.
Here we go. Sam, did you survive no Jericho on the show tonight? Sure, you were very disappointed.
No Hook either.
No Hook,
no mention
of
of
Jericho. Was there anyone else missing that just felt like?
I mean, the whole learning tree. Other than that, I can't think of anybody notable.
I will say this about Ricochet showing up after this interview as well, and teasing. I'm not nearly as excited for Ricochet as ever and Will Ospreay as I think they want me to be.
No, I'm not.
Like, they have a lot of work to do.
Yes. And I hope, and what they did tonight did not get me pumped about it. It felt totally fake.
Yes.
And I think they could have played into it. Like, I think what they should have done, unless they're going to do it Wednesday, I hope they don't just go straight to it Wednesday. But I liked Will celebrating his win, moving on, and saying, like, basically saying, I'm the guy who's been rooting for him to get here, and I want him to step up. Like, I liked the fact that he agrees with me that Ricochet should have been wrestling more.
Yeah.
Because he only did the one match, and he only did the one match. It was with Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher, I wouldn't say ran circles around him, but he made him look slow. And I don't know if Ricochet
Fletcher was the better
really having
wrestler
an
in
off
that match.
night.
There's nothing wrong with saying that.
Yeah, and I don't know if Ricochet just had an off night, or if he's literally like, oh, like I'm used to going 80 miles an hour, and AEW goes 100, or what. But my takeaway from that was like, oh, Ricochet isn't the Ricochet he used to be. And not saying he's washed or anything. I'm just saying when you go from being one of the crispest, fastest, most athletic, amazing wrestlers in the world to being another guy who can do a lot of that stuff, that's significant. That said, I think they have to do the match. I'd rather them do it sooner than later.
Yes.
I think Will doing what he said was fine. I just don't think we should have even seen Ricochet. I think he should have just called him out and then Ricochet take exception to it later. Like, they kind of just went straight into like talking trash on each other. And it was like, they should have been a little bit like, hey, I'm happy to see you. Why are you talking trash about me? And it kind of built a little bit. I think that would be fine. But
Ricochet does not have the charisma to stand in a suit and announce an intention of something. Right. And make people feel like it's a big deal or get you excited or all these things. Ricochet may have thought that those matches on WWE Speed was going to get him by, at least for the get-go on AEW Dynamite. It is not. I have no doubt that in the next month or so, Ricochet's conditioning is probably going to be a lot better, and we're going to see a different Ricochet than, say, Sheamus with a little bit of a gut after being gone for like 9 months, and he looks
quite that,
great now. Like, these guys are constantly training their body and improving and seeing what improvement they need to make.
Right.
It's just unfortunate that when he came in, he was not.
And unfortunate.
He was not at the point he needed to be.
And it's unfortunate that they did that one shot and then haven't done anything since. Like, if they had said, like, great, you're going to be on Collision every week, or you're going to do a Dynamite squash match every week, I'm sure he would look better every week. It's just that they did the one, he was underwhelming, and then they just iced him for, that's dramatic because it's only a few weeks, but like 2 weeks, literally.
Somebody from being on wrestling because you don't have an opponent that can make them look like the main event or upper mid-card star that you want them to be is not a solution. It's just a postponement and nobody goes anywhere. You just stay in the same place or actually lose momentum.
So all that said, I think Ricochet is fine to be Will's next opponent. I think he probably should be. I think it's fine for Ricochet to have lose his first big match to Will.
I want to see an asshole Ricochet. Let's do this. Let's have him be a shithead Will and say, I got you. I'm going to beat you. And just tell him every week, like, I've got you. I'm going to beat you. I'm not worried about it. Like, you're not as good as you think you are.
What do you think of this? Will has amicably left the Don Callis family. And when he did, was told, one day I'm going to ask you for a favor. Now, I don't even know if this needs to play into it, but how would you feel about Ricochet becoming a member of the Don Callis family?
No. They just had Roosh, and he's disappeared.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
They are retooling and working on these organizations. Ricochet as a guy in a group with Callis does not do him any favors. If you are bringing this guy in because he is a high flyer and he is in with a group, I feel like he would fit much better being a shithead with the Young Bucks and that kind of group.
The problem is he needs someone to cut his promos for him.
Right.
So how do you do that without, they don't really.
Just have Okada call somebody a bitch for him.
Done.
I mean, if you have the Young Bucks and you're wanting Jack Perry, I don't know where Ricochet goes. He is good at a lot of things. He is great at a lot of things. But everything that he exceptionally talented at, they have somebody who's better at it.
Mm-hmm.
So like they brought him in, but he's not going to be the focus. He's not going to be. He's going to be 12th guy in the totem pole.
Yeah,
The
coolest I ever saw Ricochet look was when he was in NXT and he was feuding with the Velveteen Dream. And Velveteen Dream was talking trash to him on a mic while Ricochet was in the ring. And Ricochet ran toward the ropes, did a flip over the ropes to the floor, landed on his feet, and just stood in Velveteen Dream's face and shut him up.
Yeah.
That was the coolest he's ever looked. And a lot of people can do that spot in AEW.
Yes. A lot of people do that spot in AEW.
Yeah.
It's like, it just, I need Ricochet to do something and be something different because what he does is not unique. And I hate saying that in 2024. Mm-hmm. But there are a number of people that caught up to what he can do.
Yeah.
And if he is not able to continue to be an innovator and a trailblazer, then he is going to find himself in a little bit of trouble
here. Yeah, and I don't even mean this to dog on him as much. It's not even dogging on him as much as it is just pointing out how far the state of the art has come.
Sure.
And also, neither of us have a high degree of confidence in Tony Khan having a long-term plan for him. I think the entire plan for Ricochet when they sign him is it's going to be great when we announce that we signed him, and it's going to be great when he has a match with Will Ospreay and has no vision for him after that, probably. Now, if he does and I'm wrong, I'll be super happy because, he has a lot to contribute. I just don't. You just got to have a plan.
And the talent is very high,
right?
The talent is deep at the top. Okay, and he's coming in with a lot to prove, with a lot of people who've put in their time and done the work and built the relationships both backstage and with the fans. And Ricochet hasn't really ever proven that he can do that. There is a groundswell to get behind him, but that has never actually translated into a sustained, if you give this guy the ball, everyone will get behind him. Does that mean that that's impossible or it can happen or it won't happen? I don't know. But there have never been a set of circumstances where it said Ricochet's got to be the guy and we got to go with him. Maybe in Lucha Underground a little bit, but Lucha Underground failed when they tried. Nobody succeeded there. Everybody went on to something else.
Right. Yeah, when he first came to the main roster, they should have seen how far he could go, but anyway. Let's move on from Ricochet because he wasn't even on the show really, other than that little bit. All right. So again, I thought, wow, I feel bad for the people who are going to have to follow this match. And then they once again put a match in that was like the perfect match to follow that up with by having something completely different, which was essentially a party match, I thought.
Yes.
Okada came out against Takeshita Orange and Mark Briscoe. They clearly knew what the people were wanting because they squared off Okada and Takeshita right away. People got into it. Orange risked getting booed by getting in between them and interrupting the face-off. But they moved past it really quick before the crowd completely turned on them. And then from there, it was like every four-way party match, it's just people pairing off, doing quick spots, jumping in. You did your spot. Now we're going to have a different pair come in. But it was very well done as these guys can do these types of matches in their sleep and it's always entertaining. And it was. Mark looked great, I thought, in this match. He really has caught on as a star in this company. I don't know what his ceiling is.
His connection with the audience is unbelievable.
It's wild because Eddie Kingston will always have a role in AEW, but he has become the new Eddie Kingston in AEW to me, where it's just like he's the people's guy. And I think it'd be interesting if Eddie came back and tried tried playing on that dynamic a little bit. That thought just occurred to me, but I don't know if Eddie can be a heel at all, but I bet Mark Briscoe could make him one. They already did it in ROH, but it was his friends. But anyway, this was a pretty fun match. There was a fun spot where Mark and Orange did the slow kicks and slow chops to each other, and then squared off into a high five, which was great. And then they threw down. The people really wanted Okada and Takeshita. Every time they got together, they did that. There was a point where Taz called it a super duper superplex, which I had to make a note of.
Sure.
Taz was
on something tonight. He
was cranked up, man.
This was his first match of the show too. Like he wasn't
right.
on the show up to this point.
That's my fault because like in the previous match I had realized that he wasn't on the show and made a note in the Discord of, I just noticed that Taz isn't on the show tonight. And so
it was a good observation. They're splitting all they were mixing and matching people all the time. Maybe
I thought
Kelly would have had a match if he was still working here.
Maybe. Maybe he was, maybe it would have been the security people were going after, but quick side note, I thought the announcing up until this match, when it was Excalibur, Tony, and Nigel, was pretty strong.
Yes.
They had a good balance. Tony was in his strengths. Nigel was doing well.
When you started introducing Taz and JR in the mix, it started getting a little off the rails, but
a little bit.
You had your reasons for doing it, and it's fine. Like
right.
It didn't take the show down.
No, not too much. I mean, they still kind of cracked each other up a little bit and Jones this and all that, but it's fine. So let's see what else was of note of this. Basic story was Okada just really I feel like Okada was never really in trouble.
No, he was always monitoring the action in the ring and jumping in when he needed to.
Yeah,
and that's basically what had happened. He capitalized at a moment when other people had basically taken each other out, and just
swoop. Yep. And Okada still has the credibility with the fans.
I'm getting over the middle finger Okada. The zoom out, zoom in.
Right.
It's getting a little long in the tooth for me. This was the second 4-way match that Okada has ever been in his career. Do you know what the first one was?
No.
It was the first Forbidden Door.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a triple threat.
No, it was
I was thinking of
Jay
that.
White, it was Hangman Page, it was Adam Cole, and Kazuchika.
Adam Cole. That's what I forgot. Of course. How did I forget Adam Cole in that match? Because
he's been in a couple of multi-man matches like the Rambo and Casino Royale. But this was the only title match. This is one of the only 2 title matches he's been in that has involved more than one other opponent.
Yeah. And this match was fun. It was fine. It was enjoyable. Everyone looked good, but I am firmly opposed to this. If they're going to have this Continental Championship, like,
don't do 4 ways.
I'm a fan of belts having a reason. I'm a fan of belts and divisions where the divisions feel different. So I like the idea of Continental title having not just being like it's the number 3 title or whatever, and there's a tournament for every year, but actually having a different set of rules. Like to me, any ROH title should have basically pure rules. And the Continental title should have, I like the short time limit, people banned from ringside, if strict enforcement of the rules and things like that. And so 4-way to me, I wasn't down with this as a concept, but it was an enjoyable party match. And it was a great little palate cleanser.
Palate cleanser.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I knew what you were saying right there.
Yes. Yes.
So there was one big takeaway I had from this match, and it is they clearly know that Okada and Takeshita is something that they need to get to at one point.
Yep.
Halfway through this match, I thought, it would be something if they had the Continental Classic conclude in Japan at Wrestle Dynasty with Okada and Takeshita facing each other from their individual blocks for the first time in the finals for the Continental Classic at the Tokyo Dome. And I was like, now you have to do it.
Yeah, because World's End is only a week or two before that, right?
You could have both of the block final matches.
Yeah, at World's End.
And then you could have the finals of the Continental Classic.
Yeah.
Wrestle Dynasty, and that's where you do Okada versus Takeshita.
I think that's great, and that also clears up any political issues of who faces Okada in this crossover show with New Japan.
Yes, I think that's a lot of.
Yeah, it's not even the easiest choice; it's also probably the best.
That I was talking
for both of them.
I was talking to the folks tonight. I was like, "That's what you do, right? Like you kind of have to."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm here for it. I like, so in that case, I kind of like this slow build. You know, a lot of people were like, why aren't they just going straight to Okada versus Takeshita?
And I saw a number of hints to work Wrestle Dynasty 3 months down the line.
Yeah, which is a good sign. So if I didn't say it already, Okada won the match by pinning Orange Cassidy with a Rainmaker. One of the things I like is that he took out all 3 guys himself. Mm-hmm. He hit the Rainmaker on Briscoe, threw him out. This is also one of the things, the drop kick that he does in every match. I've never seen him do the drop. Usually it's like a quick, momentum change move. This was not a momentum change. He had the momentum, and the only time he used that drop kick was when he kicked Takeshita out so that he could do the Rainmaker on Orange.
He used the drop kick a couple other times.
Did he? I just didn't.
He did.
I know he did like the shotgun.
He used the drop kick against someone who was in the corner, and he actually hit the guy in the face while the guy was sitting on the top rope. And it was like, good Lord, you got on that one. And then he hit it one more time, and then he used the drop kick to boot Takeshita off the outside of the ring, and then he got the pin off the board.
So for all the frustration that we have with how kind of silly Okada is portrayed as when he's not wrestling,
his one match a month is always something.
I like how they are portraying him as like he is still the ring general. He is still like the guy who controls it. And like you said, he kept this match under control the entire time, and in the end, he took out all 3 guys.
There is a sense with Okada that when he was in Japan, that he was wrestling amazing matches all the time, and he wasn't. He was wrestling 1 match a month. That was a main event singles match, and he was doing prelim tags and multi-man every night in the run-up to these matches. This is what he's doing in AEW as well. Like I would say that he had a harder match with Kyle Fletcher a week ago than he did tonight. But he still knew exactly what he needed to do to be the persona that everyone pays money to see. And if on the big night he is still able to deliver, I'm going to bristle when he does the bitch and he does the stupid shit that makes me feel like we are being patronizing to Japanese wrestlers. Don't like it, but I understand what draws the audience, and I will temper my expectations as long as we can get performances like this from time to time.
Right. All right. Now we have last 3 matches of the night. Some of the big title matches. Mercedes Mone versus Hikaru Shida. This was one of those matches that was made in the course of a week. Mm-hmm. I think for being made in the course of a week, they were able to generate a fair amount of excitement pretty quickly, because I think just Shida was the way they presented her little spots and promos. Like, Shida's someone that the AEW is always going to love her, the fan base, and they're always going to get behind her. She's kind of like Riho in that way. But even more so. But I would say this is probably the most momentum Sheeta's had in a while. Even though it was just a week of momentum, like, people were excited to see her in Monet. And I think a lot of it's because they really respect her and they really respect Mercedes and want to see how well they do with each other. Where it's like people didn't have high expectations of the quality of match for Mercedes and Britt, and I don't think even met those expectations, but I think people had a high expectation for this match, and I don't think it hit it. There was something really off by the end of this match, and I'm not...
This match wasn't good.
No.
You're being kind. This match
I'm talking about leading into the match, not even like the entrances, like how, Yeah, well, I mean, this match clearly had the least the least crowd energy. It had the least heat. It had the that.
Nobody believed Shida was going to beat her.
Oh no, nobody did.
And
no.
Everyone was like, we got 2 more matches.
Yeah.
Mercedes in this position was not enough to sustain the interest. And I don't mean this badly for Mercedes. It's just like there's something about her character and there's something about her presentation that isn't working. And I don't know what it is, but the CEO thing is grating rather than growing. And she is a star. She's got it all. But they are so committed to doing this version of what she's doing that it is to a detriment to the entire product.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think this is kind of just who Mercedes is, though. It's like,
that's fine. Like, that's what they're paying for. But when you get the results that aren't what you intend and you're saying, well, the audience is not like responding the way we want. Like, no, you're not presenting. Like, there are times when Hulk Hogan wasn't presented the way that Hulk Hogan should be presented and the audience didn't react to it. Mercedes is a star. She is legitimately one of the most recognizable women's wrestlers in the world. But there's something about these AEW matches that just don't work.
Which is weird because she's wrestling really well. Like, she is clearly one of the top. She's one of the top women in the U.S. If you don't count some of the people who've recently come over, but and she can hang with anybody.
She had a great match with Momo Watanabe in the same gear a week ago.
Right. Yeah, the same gear, literally. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how to solve the problem. But there was something especially weird in this match. And I think it actually had something to do with Mercedes's wig.
Oh yeah, she kept adjusting it.
Well, I think it came pretty loose because there was a point where it like she moved it and it went hunk. Like, I mean I think she was in danger of losing her wig on TV, which is like a nightmare scenario because no one's ever seen her without it. I think it was really distracting to her, and I don't know. I don't want to speculate or try to make any assumptions or anything like that, but there was a vibe that almost she was mad at Shida by the end of the match to me. I might be reading into it of like, maybe it was her fault that happened. I don't know. There was this weird, the spot near the end, that said, let's see. Where did I put it in here? Okay. So there were 3 katanas. Shida hit her finishing move 3 times in a row on Mercedes. Okay. On the 3rd one, she went to cover her and Mercedes did not even let it be a 1 count and rolled out of the ring, adjusted her wig, came back in, and then they kind of went to an ending where it looked like Shida was going to do a Meteora off the top, I think, or something like that. And then Mercedes did her awful finishing move and missed it first, and it got reversed, and then she hit it again, pinned her, and had a, again, I might be reading it. She looked really annoyed by the end of the match, and the way she got out of the ring, it kind of marched up, and she was still playing along, but like
she was ready to get off camera.
She was done.
Yes.
And so that'll be interesting to hear about later. But
where do you go next with Mone? Are we just doing Wrestler of the Month, Feud of the Month? Who have we built up now? I mean, Amanada is set up with
right. Amanada is set up with Mariah. You've got Statlander is a heel.
She's off the board. Like, take those 2 off the board because they probably have a CMLL match somewhere in there.
I mean, if you had a face champion, you could move Statlander right into, being a big bad because she got a huge victory tonight. But I don't know, maybe Mina?
Okay.
I mean, I think
I'm
the natural thing would be to pair Mina with Mariah, but
well, the whole thing was like you naturally had a Mina Mercedes match set up at the New Japan show last week, and they didn't do it. Like they didn't do it at all. And so if you're going to do it, you're probably doing it in AEW. So I'm not opposed to it, but it feels like Mina and Mariah would be a direction before you can go.
Yeah, I expected it to be set up tonight, but
maybe they do Tony.
Oh, this is how okay. Sam has a good one. Ooh. I mean, I don't know how like great the match is going to be, but in terms of storyline and how you do it,
and I can take you
coming back from Japan.
Sure.
Yep.
I like it. Samantha Shipman.
Yes.
Our bombshells, 1 p.m. Eastern every Sunday. Not tomorrow, though, because they did their pre-show today, but every other Sunday.
Yes. Yep. I think that's a great idea. I was just thinking when she cut her final promo as she finished that tournament that I was like, I'm really looking forward to see what she gained from that tour.
Well,
I didn't see a lot of the matches, so I didn't see.
You just got to wait 4 weeks for Tony Khan to decide to do something with this person once they come back from a tournament from Japan. No,
it's going to take a little while. I'm sure he's going to have a video package ready to go about her win, about her
in
great run
on Collision.
Yeah, yeah.
If nobody knows what I'm talking about, I was exceptionally frustrated about Takeshita getting almost no play until last week about his fantastic performance in the G1. But I am nothing if not demanding about my quality control here.
Yes. Now, when she does, I think that's a great choice to have her come in and use that footage and say she just went on an excursion. She's better than she's ever been, and she's ready to step up against Mercedes. I think that could be a good dynamic and a good test for her to see if she really has stepped up.
There is going to be a point where the conversation is Mercedes worth the money that they're paying. And we're not there yet, but she has not delivered to the level of, say, Will Ospreay. And she's had better matches in New Japan up to this point than she's had.
Delivered in what sense? Match quality?
Or just...
Because you could make a case that no one's worth the money.
Or everybody's worth the money.
Well, in a business sense,
I would say that given the demand and what her perceived value was coming into the company, I am not necessarily sure that anyone has been able to maximize the money spent versus what they should be getting in return for her star power. That's what I'm saying from like something's missing, something's not right. They just... Like, we are talking about this card and we're coming away from it. And I may be putting words into your mouth, but this was the worst match on the
card. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Other than the pre-show. Yeah.
And when you just matter of fact say Mercedes Mone had the worst match on this show, like, how many times are you going to have that conversation?
And arguably had the worst one on the last show
with Britt. So, like, I am leading you to this thought process that you can draw your own conclusions that eventually, if this trend does not turn around, is it the opponent or is it Mercedes?
Well, right. Because she, in both cases, I think, and I haven't seen a lot of the, criticism of what other people are saying because we've been here, but she will not get blamed, I don't think, for either match, and probably won't.
She had a great match with Momo Watanabe in between. So,
and if they do Anna Jay and it's not a great match, Mercedes isn't going to blame for that. Like, if anything, it'll be like, wow, Mercedes couldn't even get a great match out of Anna Jay.
Yes.
Now, I believe Mercedes is really good. I said earlier, I think she's one of the best. I mean, she really is, but it's a thing where it's like she's not great in the Young Bucks sense, where your talent is making other people really good. Yeah. And Sam said Mercedes wasn't the issue at all. And I'm not saying she was.
But there are people that in bad faith will make the narrative around the fact that Mercedes is not having these great matches. And they will use that as ammunition.
Yeah.
And it just like, this is something that is avoidable. Like they need to figure out what it is that is not firing in the engine of producing matches for Mercedes and fix it, because, you're leaving money on the table. That's it. Like you're leaving money on the table.
I think the only thing that I'm giving them a little grace on with her is that I can't think of what it is that would fix it. Like in some cases you're like, oh, I could see if they would just do this, and the only thing I can think of is just bring in some of the best international women's talent in the world and have her do matches with them. But even then, I think the matches would be better.
You have to establish the familiarity with the star power against who she's wrestling. Like if you bring in all these Japanese talent, there's only so many that even like the Western world is going to be aware of, Like,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Even if the match quality goes up, it's not going to be a difference maker in terms of her becoming like a ratings draw or a bigger draw, or she can main event a pay-per-view or any of that.
If she has if she's able to show up at Historic X over in November and do a startup match there, maybe that sets up some stuff for her wrestling AEW. Otherwise, that's great. We're going to have her at Wrestle Dynasty too. Like there's going to be a lot of international talent that she's going to be wrestling. Meanwhile, what are we setting up for her at her home promotion?
Right. And I just don't know. It's just a weird, I'm just wondering if it's even a winnable situation, because I just don't know who, other than bringing in, signing famous WWE people, or some other star, or maybe, if Mariah takes off, or they pair her with Toni Storm, that'll get some energy, but it won't be her. It'll be I don't know. Can't figure it out tonight. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird.
It's something just to keep notice of when we continue these pay-per-view coverages, and we have her matches, and hopefully this is going to trend that continues, and the upswing is that.
And not to belabor it, but we haven't even mentioned Jamie Hayter yet. So there's someone in the wings who is a huge name to the inside crowd, and it would be a big match to at least the home crowd. All right.
You build to that one, man. You build to that.
Yeah, you build a lot. You got to have a collision course for that. You can't just do a 2-week, 3-week thing, or have her win a battle royal or something.
Speaking of a 2-week build.
Yeah, speaking of a 2-week build.
Well, we had an Anarchy in the Arena callback, so they had a couple of things.
Yeah, seeds were planted.
Yes.
And those seeds were harvested, but this is super interesting to me. So Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry, AEW World Title. Jack coming off the coffin match, dominant win over Darby, where it was almost a squash match, to essentially write Darby off temporarily because he hasn't been seen since. I know it's only been 2 weeks, but a lot of speculation going in, a lot of curiosity of people to see how over Jack Perry would be in Chicago, because when he first returned from his exile, it was in Chicago at a New Japan show, and he was over like Rover. Like that place, that was an electric return. And I'm sorry, my ringer's on for some reason.
I didn't hear that. I heard it the first time. I'm like, is that my phone?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
That seemed to be a one-off thing. Like it was it, and I kind of sensed it would be. He was still over as a bad guy, not super heated or anything like that, but they played up a big entrance coming out with the security guards the way he did. I think he did that in the New Japan show too. Bucks came out with him too. Like they were doing everything they could to set this guy up to win. Yeah, just giving him every favor they could. He was just kind of like a bad guy, and so people were kind of treating him like a bad guy, and that's fine. But I'll tell you who was over in that building was Mr. Bryan Danielson.
Yes, sir.
And it warms my heart that Tony continues to shell out the bucks, or whatever deal he worked out to
the final countdown,
to have the final countdown, because that's just beautiful. And it really hit me how, I mean, I feel like I got to do full disclosure every time we talk about him, but like Bryan Danielson's my favorite wrestler of all time. So I'm not biased about, I mean, I'm not unbiased. I can't be unbiased about him, but, it felt special when he made that entrance with that belt and the crowd. And I think because it's that home, I mean, it's as hometown, as home AEW crowd as you get at an all out show. They were so happy to see him come out as champion, and with that song, and, Danielson has been cutting these promos lately where he talks about being fully present and being able to appreciate the moment, and, being able to just appreciate what he gets to do. Mm-hmm. And I think we're entering an era where these fans are appreciating that they get to be at a show in this final run, or, final major run, and see him get a world title run, and know that it's going to be a better world title run than he's ever had before. Mm-hmm. Unless you count his ROH run, but and so it felt, he instantly made the match feel like a bigger deal. The way they treat him, the way they shot him, the gear he had, his little dragon scales on his jacket were gold now. Scale, I love a little touch like that. And then the way they shot the entrance, they shoot it with the spotlights and everything. Danielson felt like a big deal, which was really cool to see for me. And it made the match feel a little more special. Thoughts before we get into the body of it, or probably won't run down.
I thought that this match definitely over-delivered from the aspect that nobody thought Jack Perry was going to win this match. And when the match was over,
mm-hmm.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I thought there was, I think nobody thought, I think people thought there was a 90% certainty that he would lose. I think there were some people that thought,
okay, I think that it's possible that people believed that there was a chance that Bryan Danielson would not walk out with the belt tonight.
Yeah, okay.
But I don't know if people thought that Jack Perry was going to be the guy to do it.
Yeah.
There were a number of scenarios that, actually did come into play that required, it was kind of brilliant. We'll get to that point when we get there. It was a really good match. It felt like the kind of match that you solidify the title run with. Like, this is the kind of title defense that he is going to be having, where the guy's going to take it to him. He's going to beat him down, and Danielson's going to gut it out. He's going to have his moment, and he is going to find a moment of weakness and capitalize on the match. And we're going to have a lot of formulas similar to that, but done differently over the next couple of months. And I'm here for it. This was a great first start. We were brainstorming after our last show about a couple of different people that it could have been that was his first opponent. But this feels right. It just feels like it was a shitty little up and coming heel that has enough clout and has enough enough aura in Chicago where it just kind of works.
Yeah.
And nobody thought that he was really going to win. But when you make him the first opponent of a new title reign, it's like, of course not. This is building to something else.
The and cement win, as John
calls it, from losing this match.
Do you think he gained?
Yes.
Do you think Jack Perry was better off from this match?
Yes. I think being in a world title match and being treated as a credible opponent, even if going in you weren't treated that way, gives you a leveling up that, regardless of what people say or think of you, you can never take away from the fact that you were in a main event and an AEW pay-per-view against Bryan Danielson.
I agree with that. I might have had too high of an expectation for what the match would do for him. And it's probably because of my unadulterated love for Bryan Danielson as a performer, but that I kind of I kind of was expecting almost a star-making performance from Perry, where it was like, wow, I can't believe how great that match was, because, you know, I kind of had the mentality of like, okay, Bryan Danielson is here. He knows he's got a couple of the cards he has left to play are limited. So every time he's going to get in the ring with a young guy, he's going to set them up for the next 10 years. I probably had too high of expectations for it, because I thought Perry did well. I thought he looked good. He did look credible. I loved how he was doing little Bryan Danielson spots through the whole thing. He did a cattle mutilation. He yelled, "I have till 5" to the ref at one point. So he was doing little things where it was like, little nasty heel stuff to him. There was, I'm not sure what the point. I will say, I also expected this to be a total House of Torture match, like just one of those matches where it's just interference,
bullshit
every which way, all kinds
of
people running in, and there was, but it was limited. It was one spot. There was a wicked ref bump where Bryce actually got a shiner. I don't know if you noticed that, but Bryce Rensbury actually had a black eye, like a place where he is busted open.
Oh yeah, I saw that. He took the psycho knee.
Yeah, took the psycho knee. And after the match was over, the first thing Danielson did was say, "Are you okay?" to him, and Bryce was like, "Yeah, it's fine." Just played it off. So yeah, he took a ref bump. The Bucks came in. They did the TK driver, Tony Khan driver on Danielson, which played off the neck stuff, because Perry was working on the neck the entire time. So the neck is still part of the storyline. Claudio and Wheeler came in to run the Bucks off. That's about all they did, right? They just sort of ran in and ran them off.
They cleared the ring so that all that was left was Perry. Yeah. And
so then it really picked up from there, mostly with some near falls and finishers. Danielson hit a knee to his head. I think it was a Psycho knee, and the ref came to, but he did a slow count, 2 count, which I think was intended to kind of help Perry a little bit. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But to me, it didn't do any favors, because the only reason he kicked out is because it was a slow count. Let's see. He did the yes. He taunted him with the yes chant, but did the middle fingers instead of the index finger, and they chanted no. A couple of like trying to hit each other with the knees, and it was just who hit. It was like a joust a little bit. Not quite as impressive as the joust that Danielson and Ospreay did in their match. Then Danielson fired up, did a little bit of like the Psycho Danielson look, hit the Psycho knee, kicked his head in. And then this is becoming one of my least favorite. I mean, this trope, I'm so tired of it, of I'm going to do the finisher. It's not going to take you out. And then I'm going to come up and basically give you the finger, give you a taunt, wave me on,
I know I'm had, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, I know I'm had, and I'm just going to turn myself over to it. And then he hits the knee and takes the pin, definitive win. Good match. It was good. It was fine. Which is kind of like Jack Perry's trend in main events. Like it's like, oh, it's good, but so
we can't have expected Jack Perry to have reached full-fledged main event level.
Yeah.
But if you look in a vacuum, what he's been able to accomplish in the last 6 months, this dude went to Japan. He went and did the New Japan Cup and joined the House of Torture. He then came back and wrestled a match for New Japan before he came back and joined the Elite, pinned Danielson at Anarchy in the Arena, won the TNT title at, I believe, Forbidden Door, and now has put himself in a position to wrestle a main event match with Bryan Danielson. We may think he's not there yet, but there is a confidence behind this new version of Jack Perry, both in the company and in himself, that he may not be the fastest guy to the top, but he's definitely working his ass off to get there. And I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen, but I do think of all the guys in his generation, he has a chance to be around the longest and healthiest.
You know who he reminds me of, and this may not be fair to him because I dog on the other guy a lot, and that's Dave Finlay. That I feel
So?
Finley's further along than him, but the idea of someone who, was in the tag leagues, popular, kind of, here's a good guy who can kind of hang with the good guys and he can have good matches and he might be in the mix a little bit, but he's kind of getting up there, and then finally gets an opportunity paired with a big heel group, put in a spot that people like, I don't know if he's ready for that spot yet, and then delivers, when he's doing there, but still isn't quite tippy top yet
at that level.
Right.
Like there's always something like, yeah, he's good, but like somebody just had, there's always something that people like will find something to ticky tack, whether it's valid or not, because they're just not prepared to give him his flowers for what he's been able to accomplish. I see what you're saying.
So we'll see. The thing I like about this is that I got this out of the way, and now he can focus on being a TNT champion and hopefully get to that level through that. So
afterwards, we had what everyone thought was going to happen, which is Kill Switch coming out, and then Christian coming out.
Now, here's what I like before that.
Yes,
is that Kill Switch came out, and everyone went, oh no, it's happening. But they let it sit for a second to let people sink in with Jack Perry and Kill Switch being in the ring again. Mm-hmm. And I like that they gave that just a little moment to acknowledge.
And you wonder what was going to happen.
And what was going to happen. And you also, the announcers actually picked up on it of like how far these two have come.
Yes.
Which I don't know how far one of them's come, but like, these guys were they were champions together, this kind of stuff, and they've been through a lot of changes. And so it was just kind of like, I just like that little moment. They stopped to acknowledge that for just a second. Then Christian, the whole group comes out, Nick Wayne got the easiest payday he's had in a while. They all came out. Yeah. And
put her hair up. She'd have to do all her hair.
I liked how they shot it because they focused on the patriarchy coming down and then just revealed that Mox was there to stop him. Mm-hmm. Like you didn't see him like march out. He didn't get an entrance. He didn't, any of that. They didn't play the song before he came out, and, he was just there, and they hadn't mentioned him. They hadn't done anything to play up, where's Mox tonight? They really hadn't mentioned Mox in relation to Danielson since Mox came back for these 2 weeks, other than, they kind of would allude to, well, we need to figure out, how he feels about Danielson being the champ. We found out, and I liked it because I think I was here with my buddy Jimmy was over watching, and, he came out and we're like, oh, that's cool. Mox is there, and then immediately you're like, I got a bad feeling about this. And then Claudio and Yuta and Pac come out, and you have that moment where they're scaring off. And I like that Christian and them, they just were like, not the time, not the moment. I'm going to call my shot later.
Et tu, Brutus.
Yes. And it made me think actually that Christian is going to hold on to that contract for a good while. Maybe even
I think we're getting a number of scenarios where Christian is going to cash in, but something stops him.
Yeah.
Like they're very similar to this.
Yeah. Like it's not the right time. I'm going to wait.
Yes.
And I think he'll have that contract longer than Danielson will have his title, actually.
That's possible. There was definitely a sense that they wanted to use the Christian thing as his cash in to draw you away from the betrayal of the Blackpool Combat Club. And it was very, very clever because you knew Moxley, something was wrong with him. Like something was up with the guy for the last couple weeks. He jumped the Outrunners, for Christ's sake. Right. Like you jumped the Outrunners, like awful. What kind of man? Yeah. So you just knew, and there was the hug and the patriarchy was dispatched, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, this is bad. And I don't know if that turn and that angle was a disservice to Hangman and Swerve later on. But there's definitely a sense of like, if the show ended right then and there, I might have been okay.
Yeah, I agree.
But they wouldn't have gotten as many people buying the show.
No, not at all. And I think it worked. I think it was risky. It was really risky. Number one, just to do it at all, but number two, to do it in the spot that they did it. It definitely is one of those. To me, it is one of those exciting turns because you're like, oh, they just took this thing that was kind of treading water, the BCC, and like there's and Danielson, like his world title reign now has a real direction to it, which is really great. Also, Mox really lost some momentum this year. His little excursion into New Japan was a little underwhelming, and boom, he's right back into being the Mox that, is integral to this company. He's clearly, like I said earlier, getting to write his own checks. So I think whatever they're doing, they're going to get to do what they want to do. And it's one of those ones where you saw it coming and was happy it did. But you didn't see it coming until it was time for it to happen, but they gave you enough time to say, oh, I bet this is going to happen. And then you're like, yes,
when you
and the way that they did it,
a split second before the actual person who's going to get it feels it.
Yeah.
It is the best and the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what happened. Me and my buddy were watching, and when they line up in the ring,
oh no.
As soon as they lined up, I was like, oh no, who's going to do it? And then it was Claudio, because he expected to be Mox. Hits him with the uppercut, and the look on Danielson's face was great. And then you just see that bag. And I thought, oh no, they're not going to do that.
Oh, they did.
And they did. And that really is truly a disturbing. I mean, it's a disturbing image,
It's not something that you want to put on broadcast. You need to have people.
No, absolutely not. And I want to make note on Twitter.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah, on Twitter. Yeah, that was on like a Saturday morning at noon, in '89. After the match, or after that happened, before the pay-per-view was over, AEW issued a tweet that said, "Due to the graphic nature of the attack on Bryan Danielson, we will not be sharing the footage. We do not condone such actions." So to me, that's one of the best things they could do is never show it again.
Unless you buy the pay-per-view.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But I mean, like, don't do a highlight on.
Probably not. It's not a great idea.
Say.
Just no.
Well, but it's also a thing to turn it. It's a way to turn a bug into a feature, in that you probably can't air that on TV, but also in saying that you're not going to air it on TV because it was so heinous makes it even worse.
Understanding a sense of moderation in the content that you are providing to your audience and saying, hey, we get that this is not as okay as everything we do, is a somewhat comforting feature, even if it's being done for storyline rather than general public consumption.
Right.
Whatever the reasoning is, I like the sense of moderation of like, hey, we're not going to show you this violent thing that we showed on our TV because it might get you to buy our show.
Right.
I got a question for you real quick.
Okay.
You had a post on our Discord, which if you email gg@fightgamemedia.com, you can join our Discord and join in our conversations about who would be the person to retire Bryan Danielson.
Yes.
And I did not vote. I figured I'd just wait to talk to you about the results and give you who I would throw in there as the possibility. So what were your results on this thing?
It was a small sample size, but
knowledgeable. So we're going to go.
Yes. So I did two polls. One was who will defeat and retire Bryan Danielson and who should.
Okay.
And the who will was, the winner of the poll was Darby Allin.
Oh, interesting.
And I will have to look to see who the should was. I may have to scroll up because there was a lot of it was who should was a 4-way tie.
Oh.
Between Ospreay, Mox, Darby, and MJF. Oh, no, sorry. Not Mox, Hangman.
That's interesting.
And of those, and this was last night, so it was before this show, or 2 days ago, I think, actually. Of those, my vote was that Darby would beat him and that Hangman should.
Interesting.
And my thinking in that was that Hangman, it was really rooted in this show, expecting Hangman to come out on top. And where do you go next with Hangman? And to me, it is to the top. Now,
Agreed.
That's before knowing the direction they're going now, and that Danielson will probably be a champion longer than we may have expected. A lot of people were probably thinking, oh, he's only got a couple months left and he's dropping at Wrestle Dream or something like that. I think he's around for a good 6 months at least.
Okay. I told you a while back that I thought Nigel Danielson should be the guy to do it, to retire him. I don't necessarily feel that way anymore. I actually think Kenny Omega should be the guy to retire Bryan Danielson.
I had that thought today too.
With their first match being a draw at Grand Slam, if Omega were to beat Danielson, I feel like that would be the thing that Danielson is like, okay, like there was a day where I could go toe to toe this guy, and now I can't. It's time.
I'm with you that on a like closure perspective, a poetry perspective of being his first and last match, and the storyline of the level that they're at and all that. Where I'm not on board with it is whoever retired. Like to me, that's like having Brock Lesnar. It's like having Brock Lesnar beat the Undertaker. Like, you know,
if Moxley isn't retiring anytime soon, it needs to be Moxley. Like there are not enough people that can really. I don't know who the young guy is on that roster that truly gets the clout from retiring Danielson. MJF.
To me, it's Hangman.
I don't think so. I don't think Hangman gets anything from beating Danielson. Like, I think they operate as wrestlers in almost two different worlds. You know, Danielson has that technical aspect and being a best wrestler in the world. Hangman is one of the best pro wrestlers in the world. You know, like the entertainment aspect, and there's something different he just offers to do that. And I think there's something different about the way that they operate that I'm not necessarily sure Hangman can get that from him.
Yeah. I think Darby would gain from it. I think I'm still of the opinion that I think that Tony Khan is on a plan to mint Darby Allin as one of the Mount Rushmores of AEW. And I think him winning a world title by beating the legend, the dynamic of Darby retiring him is a little weird, which makes me think they're not going to do it because they're both so beloved, but it would mint him as a tippy top guy and a face of the company. And like, you can never say he's not credible. He retired the best wrestler of the last 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if him retiring Danielson does anything for him, but if Danielson came back after retirement and challenged Darby after Darby had the title and lost, I think that would do much more for Darby.
Yeah. And to me, it's not even the retirement as much as like, it would almost be more effective to me if he weren't retiring and just beating him for the title. To me, him beating someone like Danielson for the title, it would be different than beating like an MJF or you know, Adam Cole or somebody. Like, it would legitimize him as a wrestler in a way that, you know, I think, I don't know. I think Darby's just, he's on a slow motion rocket ship to the moon. In AEW.
It's such an interesting conundrum. Who's the right guy?
Well, I think if you're right that it's Moxley, what they could be doing is building to Moxley retiring Danielson and Darby being the one to take out Mox eventually.
That'd be great.
Not retire him, but defeat him, you know, and you get like whatever.
There is a through line to that absolutely works.
Yeah. Which is one of the things that is still, you know, for all his faults, one of one of the strengths of Tony Khan, whether it's by hook or crook or accident, is he's good at leaving breadcrumbs for trails that you can go down later and make it seem like you were going there the whole time, even if you weren't. Yeah. So he's good at leaving possible off ramps on things.
And we've been going for 2 hours, 10 minutes. We got to finish this up.
Yeah, I know. All right.
We got our unofficial last match of the show.
Yes, the official show is over. Already. We did talk about it a little bit. I'll just run through some of the quick high points so then we can just kind of reflect upon it, and I'll see if I have an opinion on it now that we've been talking for 2 hours. Swerve versus Hangman, lights out cage match. I think the crowd was super interesting how the crowd felt because they just saw this heinous angle that was like truly shocking. I think they were buzzing a bit from that, and I think they were like, I think this is where the gutsy move of the hardcore angle they did with Mox paid off. I think it was a risk and it hit because I think people saw that and was like, wow, if they just did this, what are we about to see? And so I think the energy was good. Hangman, and I loved, quick note too, I loved how they presented it in the beginning of the show where both guys came in with security surrounding them and they were restricted to their dressing rooms for the entire show. Like it was just a small thing, but it was like, guys, these are two like bulls that we have penned up, you know? And so I loved how they presented. Hangman came out like feeling himself. Hangman's confident, you know, feeling like he's coming in with the advantage. And then Swerve came out all in white, which was, there's a purpose for that. Which was interesting that they pointed out how he had flames on his gear, and not just flames, but he had photos of Hangman sitting in front of his childhood home burning to the ground on his gear. So he clearly was owning the pain. I felt like the mood was tense when it started, which actually played into it. And it's hard in these matches to mix up a wrestling match and a brawl, when you do wrestling moves and what kind of moves seem appropriate here and things like that. I thought they did a good balance here. Did some interesting spots. I thought it was clever how they got the plunder into the ring, by having the cage drop and have them, I thought for a second they were going to start outside the cage. Because they started the cage drop and then they started fighting, and Hangman was holding Swerve under it to try to decapitate him, apparently, by the cage. Swerve saved him. Did a house call right away. Liked how Nana was talking trash to Hangman.
Nana saving their lives against getting
decapitated. Yeah. Staple Gun came out early. They recreated, did a lot of callback spots. There was a lot of spots where it was like the table was turned and you got your comeuppance for the thing you did to me before. So, where it was Hangman's with his kids' drawings, and this was the photos that he had of his siblings, I think. The staple spots, those staples are hard to watch, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, these are just two tough guys, and if they can take the pain, this is a pretty safe spot to do. That's like, it's a big reaction.
There's always something a little hardcore about the guy with like a firearm or something behind the other guy and like getting him in the back like that. It was such a visual that it was like, man, and I'm not supposed to like looking at this visual, but it was just so compelling. Yeah.
It was. And that's one thing though, these two guys do really well is sell that viciousness and just disregard, for each other's humanity. The crowd kind of seemed not down, but like pacing themselves.
Going to go a while.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like they knew that there were certain things that had to happen before this match was going to be over. So
pacing themselves is what I wrote down. Yeah.
Yeah. Unless they got something gratifying, they were holding their breath and taking their time with reacting.
Randomly, Paul Turner tried to enforce some kind of rule by trying to keep a chair away. That was so dumb. And then he's like sitting there, like bent over, like for like 3 seconds, waiting for Swerve.
He was like, think of the children, and I'm like, what children?
Yeah, right. And then it got really vicious. So, and by vicious, I mean guys doing things to each other that I don't know how you do safely. So like a lawn dart into a chair. Then they brings out the cinder block. And then they're just doing power bombs on a cinder block. That just looked vicious. Or no, before that, Swerve did a vertebreaker onto the cinder block, which left a nasty scrape on Hangman's back.
The most popular cut on everyone's body tonight was an abrasion.
Right, was an abrasion. They had a great close-up of it. And then it was like this interesting thing where the first 2 count happened. And I was like, well, this feels weird to do a 3 count. Like,
yeah.
They never said, there was different rules about that, but like, I was like, it seems like this is a lot to try to get a 3 count, So there's a couple of that. And then, Hangman pulled out a, piece of like a steak that was charred, that presumably was a, piece of Swerve's childhood home that he had fashioned into a vampire weapon. And,
a shiv.
Yeah. And then, shiv. Exactly. He fashioned a shiv.
A charred shiv.
And I thought for a second he was going to drive it into Swerve's heart and he'd explode into a pile of dust or something. But
I thought
they fought over it
first.
Yeah. They did a good job of struggling over it. Had, shades of Magnum TA and Tully in that. And then when Swerve finally got it and just drove it into him, like people were just like, it really worked on the crowd. There was a really good creative camera shot of him holding the steak where he had it in front of the image of Hangman on his tights on there. There was a good camera shot. Then there was a low blow and then they exchanged power bombs on a cinder block, or I think or were they both on Swerve? There were like 2 of them.
They were both on. Hangman only took one at the beginning and then Swerve took the one.
That's right. The vertebreaker was, So he did the powerbomb on the center block, and that looked just horrible.
It looked good. Something that no one should never take ever again. Like, we should never have a center block in a wrestling ring ever again.
All I think of when I see stuff like that is Rick Rude ending his career, basically.
I just think about, like, you will not be able to sleep well for the rest of your life.
Well, I think if that goes wrong, like, you're
Yes. I don't want to say it, but yes.
You're done. Yeah.
You're a leech.
Prince Nana's nearly crying at this point. They did a wicked house call that I think was a little unintentionally too stiff onto Hangman's head, drove him into the cage. Swerve started to climb the cage for some reason, and then Hangman did a power bomb off the top turnbuckle super hard. Like, these guys were just not.
That was a gnarly angle that
they almost like it almost was like they had decided to not even work anymore and just do everything for real. Did a dead eye. Swerve rolled over. Then Hangman was telling him to beg for mercy, and I thought for a second that Nana was going to throw in the towel or submit for Swerve. But then Swerve starts laughing, and then we did essentially a super extended over the top version of what I just complained about in the Perry match, which is Swerve kind of giving in to the fact that he's lost, but just sort of he starts laughing, and you almost think it's going to be a comeback, but then you notice that like Swerve kind of did something with his mouth, and then Hangman pulls the grill out of his mouth, throws it down, goes into the case, pulls out a hypodermic needle, pulls the thing off. As far as I could tell, there was a real needle on the end of that thing. Then holds Swerve, needles him in the mouth, injects whatever's in there into his mouth.
Tranquilizer in the mouth.
And then lets go of it. It's hanging out of his mouth in some way. And while I'm trying to process this and even say, what's he trying to accomplish here? Is he going to like drug him and he passes out? I don't even know. I don't even know what's happening. As I'm thinking about this, Hangman pulls out a chair, swings it as hard as he can. They cut to a wide shot, so you don't even actually really see it.
Probably for the best.
And that chair exploded. And I know that there's some sort of theory, like gimmicking. I don't even know what all that is. My buddy Jimmy was watching with me, said that he like saw screws on the ground. So he was like, I don't think, like, I was like, well, maybe it was like they took all the attachments out and it was just sort of there. So it just popped through, you know.
Nah.
That was the worst. That was the worst thing of the whole night. And the ref stops it, which I thought, you know, that spot aside was an effective ending, you know, that someone else called it for him because Swerve was not going to quit and he was just out. I thought they were going to do a gimmick where he like drugged him and he passed out or something. And I thought that, you know, if they had done that, that's a little too clever by half a little bit.
I mean, it's one of those, it doesn't even matter who won or lost this match because it doesn't go in the record books or anything like that.
Right.
So Swerve still is up 3-0 on him.
Yeah.
The match was brutal, but it also had to play into the year's worth of Greek tragedies that Swerve and Hangman have been instilling on each other.
Right.
And they're going to come back to this. You know, the worst thing that they could ever do is put these two in a tag team with each other. I'm sorry, please don't ever do that with these two. But at the same time,
do it a couple years from now.
A couple years from now, but like, let's slow your roll on this. These guys are going to end up in a ring with each other at a casino battle royal in like 9 months, and the crowd's going to go wild.
Yeah. So you're thinking this is it for them for a while.
It should be.
I agree. I'm just wondering if that's.
Do you remember when Omega and Page ended up in a ring with each other for the first time in like a year and a half?
Yep.
Do you remember the reaction of that audience?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they can do with Swerve and Hangman now.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm thinking Swerve's taking a little time off.
Hope so.
He's earned it. I think he probably should be out for a good while. Mm-hmm. I think he should be getting paid a big fat paycheck for the for his new deal.
Ricochet needs time on the camera. The Blackpool Combat Blackpool Combat Club needs time on camera. You know, you have a lot of acts that grizzled young vet Will Ospreay. You know, you have been running out of time and ability to feature these guys. If MJF's taking time off, if Swerve's taking time off, it's time for them to reestablish and create some programs for some of these other guys with the vacuum of airtime.
That's great, but to me, Hangman should. I don't want a Hangman where he just comes in, has an awesome thing, and then disappears again for a while.
What are you gonna have Hangman do? Probably that's what I too.
That's what I don't know. Yeah, I mean, he could.
I don't see room at him at the main event.
I don't now. 24 hours ago I did. I thought, that's gonna, it's gonna be there. So I don't know. To me, that's a bit of a problem. Like if you have a memorable main event like this and neither guy slingshots into something else, it's sort of like, well, okay. Like, I don't know.
Hangman's going to be fed a bunch of baby faces that can lose because he is a top heel at this point. You know, he's more of a top heel than MJF is to me. MJF is an act.
Yeah, and I think MJF's going to be out for a little bit. I think he'll be out for a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I think they're in good shape. I just think it'd be a shame if Hangman just disappears again for a while.
I think he'll have a pretty prominent match on Wrestling. Maybe they'll run it back. Maybe they'll do another Swerve and Hangman match.
Yeah, but I agree with you that. I agree with you at the point that like this.
Where do you go from here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Cool off.
I don't know. I mean, off a cliff. I mean, it's like that's pretty much they're pretty much Thelma and Louise at this point. Like they're just gonna hold hands and jump off into the gorge or something together.
Dark but true.
Yeah. So
we did it.
Bottom line, yeah. I think this 2 weeks were really good for AEW. Hopefully, this is memorable enough, and I think we've got a fire under Bryan Danielson as a gimmick because he's got a feud that matches. It's not just going to be him having dream matches until he retires. You got some exciting stuff going on. You've also got some issues that need to fix, but I think it's good night, good couple of weeks.
I'm excited to know that I feel like there are directions 4 months out, and that is more than I have felt in a while.
Yep.
And it's not every direction, but there are things that, like, if they don't deliver, I will be frustrated. But I've been watching wrestling enough to read the signs and say, I think I know where they're going, and I'm totally okay with it.
Right. Right. Same. All right. Well, it's late.
It is. What time is it over for you right now?
It is 2 a.m.
Gross. I'm hitting midnight.
Yep. All right. Well, then we will call it. Thank you for the many people who showed up.
Many people.
This evening to spend their time with us. I will be back, I guess, Wrestle Dream.
Sure. October 12th.
Or maybe, yeah. I might crash the Dynamite show or something for Arthur Ashe or something like that. I haven't done that in a little while. But you will be back Thursday, right?
Thursday. We'll be doing Speak of Strong Style, which is our traditional New Japan show, which is why I'm bullshitting about New Japan here or there on the Boom AEW show. We go 90 minutes with me and my podcast partner, Stephen Conway. He's the real brains of the operation. I just sit there. Like, if you think that the show is all about me, like, taking
the Pat McAfee.
I 100% am just the color on this one. No, but we talk about New Japan. We have a passion for it. There's a ton of title matches coming up this next week, and we are talking actively about Zack Sabre Jr.'s rise to prominence and the downshift of Naito as a main eventer and plenty of other things. We have fun talking about it, and you are welcome to join us anytime, audience, and you as well, Kevin Ely.
Oh, I need to stay up on the product a little more to participate in that. But hey, if you're a fan of talking booking and learning about booking, this is a great show to listen to because New Japan has pretty clear, solid, traditional booking things, but also you guys are really smart about talking about it, and you learn a lot when I listen to it.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll give you this freebie. You know what I think Naito's match at Wrestle Kingdom is?
Hiromu. He loses?
No, I think he beats Hiromu, but
okay.
Hiromu's got a match with Hinare for the Never Openweight title.
I was going to say, does Naito defeat him for the Never title?
No, I think Hiromu wins the title from Hinare, drops the title back to him at some point, but it gets him in a position where, like, you can see him wrestling Naito in a heavyweight match. And Wrestle Kingdom, they've been talking about that match for years. Hiromu's wanted that match for years.
See, I guessed right.
I think you did.
I think I guessed right. And that's because I listened to Speaking of Strong Style.
Speaking of Strong Style.
All right. Let's
get out of here. Take it home, man.
All right. Thanks everybody for listening. Join us in the Discord by emailing Gigi at Fight Game Media. We're both in there semi-obsessively and would be willing to argue about anything you want to talk about. So for me, for Jeremy Finestone and all the people at Fight Game Media, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.